Olivia Mercer had always imagined heartbreak as something loud, shouting, slamming doors, the chaotic violence of betrayal. But when the moment finally came, it arrived in perfect, surgical silence. She stood in the dim glow of the garage, breath freezing in her chest, staring at the dashboard camera screen she was never meant to find. A single thumbnail blinked back at her. Date night, 2 years. Her hand trembled as she pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the cramped space first. Low, intimate, unmistakably tender. Then Eva's laughter followed, soft and breathless, echoing through the speakers like a ghost taking shape. Olivia didn't move. Couldn't. The footage wasn't explicit. It didn't have to be. It was worse. The two of them speaking about her, calmly, casually, planning a future where she was already erased. And at that moment, something inside her didn't just break. It went silent. Forever. The morning Chicago light filtered through the tall kitchen windows, pale and cold, as if unsure whether to touch the marble countertop where Olivia Mercer stood. She hadn't slept. The coffee machine hummed behind her like a distant engine, a meaningless sound in a world that had shifted irreversibly overnight. The folder sat there, sealed, blue, official. A quiet and devastating object. She didn't mean to find it. She only wanted a pen. The drawer had stuck, the way it always did, catching on a warped section of wood Daniel refused to fix because the condo is temporary until we find a real home. A promise he repeated for 3 years. And behind that jammed drawer, tucked between tax documents and an old warranty, she saw it. Mercer Financial Transfer Plan, confidential. Her name wasn't on the cover. Her pulse stuttered. Now, hours later, the folder was opened in front of her, its contents fanned across the table like broken glass. Olivia stared at the spreadsheets, the signatures, the withdrawal slips. Daniel had been moving assets, opening accounts she didn't know he had, converting marital funds into private ones, slowly, quietly, purposely, preparing for a life without her. It wasn't the betrayal that gutted her, at least not the emotional kind. The intimacy had been fading for years, eroded by silence, and the distance that came from two people living parallel lives. She had sensed something, but she'd told herself it was normal. Marriages cooled. People changed. Careers took energy. But this was strategy. Her hands trembled as she lifted one of the documents again. The ink seemed to glare at her. Projected divorce settlement allocation. Not potential, not if necessary, just a quiet acknowledgement that he had already decided. The front door clicked open. Olivia froze. Daniel's footsteps were unmistakable, measured, composed, the same cadence he used in boardrooms and shareholder meetings. He entered the kitchen, loosening his tie, expecting the morning to unfold like every other. Peaceful, controlled, with Olivia as the soft gravitational center that made his world run smoothly. Then he saw the folder. A ripple, almost imperceptible, crossed his face. "Liv," he said carefully. "Where did you... Why?" Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears, hollow, stunned. "How long have you been planning this?" Daniel exhaled through his nose, a subtle sign of irritation he couldn't quite hide. "It's complicated." She laughed, not loudly, but in a short, fractured burst that made him shift uncomfortably. "Complicated," she repeated softly. "You're preparing to divorce me, Daniel. That seems pretty straightforward." He ran a hand through his hair, the facade slipping. "Liv, let's not jump to conclusions. You've transferred nearly $200,000. Her voice didn't rise, but it sharpened. "You hired an appraiser separately. You projected a settlement without me even knowing." He swallowed. There it was. the guilt surfacing like a shadow. Daniel stepped closer. I was trying to find the right moment to talk. Things haven't been good between us. You know that. Bad marriages aren't a free pass to rewrite the rules, she said. He looked away, and in the silence, Olivia saw it, the truth she had avoided, the truth that explained the late nights, the distance, the sudden obsession with the gym, the careful grooming, the cologne she didn't recognize. Who is she? Olivia asked quietly. Daniel stiffened, a second too slow. That was all she needed. Her world didn't collapse. It simply stilled. As if someone had pressed a hand against her ribcage and held everything in place until she numbed. Daniel shifted again, searching for the version of himself that always sounded rational, always in control. We don't have to make this ugly. I want us both to move forward, peacefully. Forward, peacefully, as if she were a minor inconvenience on his path to freedom. Olivia stepped back and looked at him. Really looked. The expensive suit, the flawless haircut, the careful posture, all of it crafted, polished, curated, a man preparing for a future where she didn't exist. Her voice was calm when she finally spoke. You've already chosen your future, Daniel. You just forgot to inform your wife. A long, brittle silence unfolded between them. Finally, Daniel said, We can talk later, when you're less emotional. He left her standing there. The door clicked. The condo fell silent, and in that silence, Olivia Mercer felt something inside her shift. Not break, but reassemble. Cold, steady, deliberate. A version of herself she hadn't met before. She reached for her phone. There was only one person she could call. The one person who would understand what to do when a marriage wasn't ending but being dismantled behind her back. Mark Halden. Her lawyer, her friend, the man who would change everything. The Rowland and Pierce building rose like a shard of polished steel against the late afternoon Chicago sky. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the sun's dying amber light, gilding the corporate facade in warmth that felt almost dishonest. Inside, the air smelled of citrus cleaner and quiet ambition. Eva Rowland crossed the lobby with the confidence of someone who had learned long ago that beauty opened doors before talent proved anything. She was 28, sharp in a fitted cream blazer, heels clicking like punctuation marks of self-assurance across the marble floor. Her lipstick, subtle, deliberate, matched the shade Daniel once told her made her look dangerous in a good way. She liked that version of herself. But today, her steps were less certain, because today she wasn't visiting Daniel. She was visiting a lawyer, a secret one, for their secret future. The elevator chimed. She stepped inside, smoothing her hair, rehearsing the script she'd practiced all morning. Daniel wants a clean break. His wife isn't handling things well. We want to do this quietly. She wasn't sure why she felt nervous. Maybe because deep down, Eva knew Daniel's promises were shaped by convenience more than conviction. He said he loved her. He said she made him feel alive. He said divorcing Olivia would free him, but he hadn't done it yet. And when a man delayed too long, Eva understood one thing clearly. You take control, or someone else takes it for you. The elevator opened on the 22nd floor. The law firm's reception area was understated. Dark wood, soft lamps, quiet. A place where secrets were handled gently, like rare glass. The receptionist smiled. Do you have an appointment? Yes, Eva Rowland, with Mr. Halden. Of course, he's expecting you. She was ushered into a corner office where the city stretched out beneath the windows, vast and indifferent. Mark Halden stood as she entered. He was taller than she expected. Early 40s, crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up. A man who looked like he'd lived through things he didn't talk about. His eyes were steady, not unkind. But there was something else there, too. Something she couldn't name. Ms. Rowland, he said, offering a hand. "Please, have a seat." Eva smiled her best disarming smile and sat down, crossing one leg over the other with practiced ease. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "My assistant said it sounded urgent." Eva hesitated, but only for effect. She knew how to use silence. "It's about Daniel Mercer." Mark didn't blink, didn't move, but something in his posture stiffened just slightly. Eva continued, "He's planning to divorce his wife soon, and we want the process to be smooth, quiet if possible. He doesn't want drama." Mark spoke evenly. "And he sent you to speak for him?" "He's overwhelmed," Eva replied. "He's trying to protect Olivia's feelings." A quiet lie. A convenient one. Mark leaned back in his chair. "Does Olivia know this divorce is being planned?" Eva's smile thinned. "She will, eventually." Mark nodded slowly. Nothing in his expression betrayed the storm forming behind his eyes. "Eva," he said, voice calm, "I need clarity. Are you asking for advice on Daniel's behalf, or are you seeking legal representation for yourself?" She blinked. I'm here for Daniel, for us." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her the way one studies a fragile structure. One wrong touch and everything collapses. "Tell me," Mark said quietly, "how long have you and Daniel been involved?" Eva straightened. 2 years. And there it was. The answer Mark already feared. 2 years. 2 years while Olivia smiled, hosted dinners, believed her marriage was tired but intact. 2 years while he himself sat across from Olivia countless times, holiday parties, charity events, dinners, watching her speak about Daniel with loyal, steady affection. A hollow ache pulled through him. He had lived this story once. He had been the fool in it. Eva, unaware of the shift in the room, leaned forward conspiratorially. "Daniel says Olivia will be fine. She's not emotional like some women. She's practical. She'll accept it." Mark felt a coldness settle in his chest. Olivia Mercer. Practical? Maybe. But no one deserved to learn their marriage had already been dissolved behind their back. When Eva finished explaining what she wanted, the timeline, the proposed settlement, the hope of a swift transition, Mark let a full 5 seconds pass before responding. "I appreciate your honesty," he said. Eva smiled, thinking it was approval. "But I need to be transparent with you." His voice dropped, firm. "I've represented Olivia Mercer for years." Something flickered across Eva's face. Surprise, then calculation, then the faintest tremor of unease. "Oh," she said softly. "I didn't know." "Daniel knew," Mark replied. "And he still sent you here?" That landed. Her breath hitched, just slightly. Mark continued, each word measured. "If Daniel is preparing for a divorce, Olivia is entitled to know, and she will know, from me." Eva's lips parted in disbelief. "You're going to tell her?" "Yes." "But Daniel isn't ready. He's been preparing for months," Mark cut in. "He robbed her of fairness. I won't rob her of the truth." Eva stared at him, the realization settling like frost over her skin. This wasn't going the way Daniel expected. And suddenly, the perfect future she envisioned. The house, the private vacations, the curated life, felt fragile, like sugar glass. Mark stood. The meeting was over. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Rowland. I suggest you speak with Daniel before either of you takes another step." Eva rose slowly, her confidence fractured. She nodded stiffly, then walked toward the door, but before she left, she turned. "Do you think Olivia will fight back?" Mark looked her straight in the eyes. "She won't have to," he said quietly. "She has me." Eva left without another word, and Mark, alone now in the quiet office, reached for his phone. There was only one call he needed to make. Olivia answered on the first ring. Rain began to tap against the wide windows of Olivia Mercer's condo just as her phone lit up. The sky outside had shifted into a bruised shade of gray, as if the weather itself sensed the fracture widening in her life. Olivia stood by the counter, arms wrapped around herself, the folder still splayed open like a wound on the kitchen table. When she saw Mark Halden's name, something inside her steadied. She didn't realize she had been holding her breath until her hand closed around the phone. "Mark?" Her voice was thin, scraped raw. "Olivia," he said, and that alone told her something was wrong. He didn't use her full name often, only when he needed her to hear the truth without flinching. "Are you somewhere you can talk?" She sank onto a stool, fingers trembling. "Yes, I found something this morning. I think Daniel is planning a divorce?" Mark finished quietly. Silence clamped around her. Cold, dense, suffocating. "So you knew," she whispered. "I suspected," he corrected. "I confirmed it today." Olivia pressed a hand to her forehead. The rain softened into a steady, rhythmic tapping, a cruel counterpoint to the rising ache in her chest. "Talk to me, Mark," she said. "Tell me everything." He inhaled slowly, as if bracing himself. "Eva Rowland came to see me." The name dropped like a stone. Olivia didn't need context, didn't need a description. Her body reacted before her mind processed anything. Her heart tightening, breath thinning, a cold burn spreading beneath her ribs. She forced her voice steady. "Who is she to Daniel?" Mark didn't answer right away, and that was answer enough. "She's the woman he's been seeing," he finally said, voice low. "For about 2 years." Olivia closed her eyes. There were no tears, not yet. Just a deep, echoing silence inside her, like a building with its foundations suddenly stripped away. Mark continued gently. "She came to discuss Daniel's divorce strategy. He didn't tell her I represent you." Of course he didn't. Daniel never liked dealing with the parts of life that required complication, empathy, or courage. He preferred delegation. Let someone else handle the fallout. "Olivia," Mark said, "I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve to find out this way." A bitter laugh escaped her. "I didn't deserve to find out at all, apparently. They were going to move on as if I were... what? A logistical detail?" She wasn't crying. Her voice didn't crack. But beneath her calm tone, the grief sharpened into anger. Quiet, precise, awakening like a blade. "What did Eva say, Olivia?" he asked. "That Daniel wants a clean, fast separation, preferably without your involvement until necessary." The insult cut deeper than the betrayal. He wasn't just ending the marriage. He was erasing her from the process, from the narrative, from the aftermath, like someone removing a painting from a wall and pretending it had never hung there. Olivia looked at the documents again. The ink that once felt like a death sentence now beginning to look like evidence. Proof. Clarity. "Mark," she said softly, "what do you need from me?" "First, he replied, "I need you to understand something. None of this is your fault. Daniel made these choices long before you had a chance to fight for anything." "I'm not going to fight for him," Olivia said. The conviction surprised even her. "I know," Mark replied, "and that's why you're going to be okay." His voice held a steadiness she hadn't felt in herself all day. "Second," he continued, "I want you to come to my office tomorrow. We need to go over your options." "Options?" she repeated quietly. A strange word, a powerful word. Before today, she had none. "Do you want to know the rest?" Mark asked carefully. "There's more?" "A little," he admitted. "Eva's worried you'll make things difficult." Olivia almost smiled at the irony. Difficult? The word men used when a woman stopped accepting pain quietly. "What else?" she pressed. Mark hesitated only a moment. "Daniel doesn't know I know, or that I'm calling you." Right now, you have the advantage. Olivia exhaled slowly. Advantage. The word settled into her bones, grounding her. For the first time since she opened that cursed folder, she felt something other than shock. A quiet resolve, a pulse of strength returning to her bloodstream, slow but undeniable. "I'll be there tomorrow," she said. "First thing." "I'll clear my morning," he replied. A pause stretched between them, heavy with unspoken history, with years of easy friendship now shifting into something sharper, more urgent. "Olivia," Mark said softly, "you're not alone in this." For a moment, she let herself believe it. When the call ended, the condo felt different. Not emptier, just honest. Quiet in a way that didn't crush her, but allowed her to breathe for the first time since dawn. She stood, gathered the documents, and slid them back into the folder. The same folder that shattered her morning. But now it felt like armor. Olivia walked to the large living room window. The rain streaked down the glass in thin rivers, distorting the city lights into trembling trails. She whispered to her reflection, to the woman who had been blind for too long, "Let him think he's the one leaving." Her reflection stared back. Tired, yes, but no longer broken. He has no idea what he started. Tomorrow, she would walk into Mark Halden's office not as a wife abandoned in the shadows, but as a woman, stepping into the light. And this time, she wouldn't be the one blindsided. Mark Halden's office was quiet in the early morning, the kind of quiet that held its own gravity. The city outside was just waking, traffic murmuring below, a distant siren cutting through the fog, the metallic echo of a train rolling over elevated tracks. Inside, the space smelled faintly of cedar and paper, familiar and steady. Olivia arrived 5 minutes early. She stood in the hallway for a moment, smoothing the sleeve of her charcoal coat, grounding herself. Her reflection in the glass door surprised her, not because she looked different, but because she didn't look ruined. She looked composed, controlled, as if something inside her had clicked into alignment overnight. Mark opened the door before she could knock. "Olivia." His voice was warm, steady, respectful. He stepped aside to let her in. She walked into the room with her shoulders squared, the blue folder tucked under her arm like evidence in a courtroom drama she never asked to star in. Mark watched her carefully, not with pity, but with an almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement, a recognition of strength. "Sit wherever you like, he said. She chose the chair facing the window, where she could see the sprawling stretch of Chicago's skyline, a reminder that the world was bigger than her heartbreak. When she settled, Mark took his seat across from her, folding his hands on the desk. "How are you holding up?" It was a gentle question, but not indulgent. Olivia met his eyes. "Clearer than I expected." He allowed a single breath of a smile. "Good. Clarity helps." She placed the folder on his desk. "I brought everything I found. I didn't touch anything else." Mark opened it carefully, scanning the documents with the practiced eye of someone who had spent decades navigating the architecture of betrayal disguised as paperwork. "Daniel's been planning this for a while, Bansos," he murmured, flipping through asset transfers, settlement drafts, timelines, and aggressively. Olivia felt her jaw tighten. Aggressively. The word stung. She clasped her hands together to keep them from shaking, not from weakness, but from anger held too neatly beneath her skin. "Tell me what happens next, Rita," she said. Mark leaned back in his chair. "Before anything else, I want you to understand this. Daniel thinks he has control. He believes he's steering the narrative, that he'll reveal the divorce when it benefits him." Olivia's gaze hardened. "That ends now." "Yes," Mark said. "Now you determine the pace." He outlined her options, financial protections, legal angles Daniel didn't expect, rights he never considered she'd assert. Olivia absorbed every detail with a calm, almost clinical focus. At one point, Mark paused. "You don't have to be strong every second, you know." She nodded, but her voice remained steady. "I know, but right now, strength is all that's keeping me from collapsing." Mark looked down at the documents again. When he spoke, his tone shifted, quieter, more personal. "I've seen too many people blindsided like this. My job is to make sure you're not another casualty." Olivia studied him. The lines around his eyes, the restrained tension in his shoulders. He wasn't detached. He wasn't cold. He cared in a way that didn't feel intrusive, but undeniably real. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded once, as if accepting something unspoken. Then he slid a new set of papers toward her. "Now," he said, "we plan your response." Olivia reached for a pen. "Where do we start?" "With this," Mark replied, tapping the document. "A formal request for disclosure. It forces Daniel to reveal everything he's tried to hide." A spark of grim satisfaction flickered in her chest. "He won't see this coming." "No," Mark agreed. "He won't." They spent the next hour dissecting finances, property, timelines, every detail of her life laid bare on the polished wooden desk. It felt strangely empowering, like she was reclaiming territory Daniel had quietly stolen. Halfway through, Mark stood to refill her water glass. She watched the way he moved, quietly, deliberately. A man who knew how to navigate explosions without making noise. When he returned, he sat closer, the edge of his knee almost brushing hers. Not intentional, not flirtatious, just present. "Olivia," he said, voice low, "you should know something important. Eva is nervous." She blinked. "About what?" "About you," he said. "About how you'll react. About whether you'll fight back." Olivia exhaled slowly. A subtle, sharp satisfaction warmed her chest. "Good," she said. "Let her be." Mark's gaze flickered, not surprise, but quiet approval. "She asked me yesterday if you were the emotional type," he said. Olivia gave a faint laugh, humor edged with steel. "She'll learn. Daniel will too." Something in his tone held weight, not just legal, but personal. As if Mark, somewhere deep inside, had vowed to protect her more fiercely than the job required. When they finished reviewing the paperwork, sunlight began cutting through the clouds, casting long, pale lines across the desk. Mark closed the folder gently. "That's enough for today. You've done more than most people manage in weeks." Olivia stood slowly, stretching her stiff legs. She felt lighter, not healed, but anchored. As she reached for her coat, Mark hesitated. "One more thing," he said. She looked up. His expression had shifted, softened. "If Daniel contacts you before tonight," Mark continued, "don't respond. Not yet. Not until we control the footing." Olivia nodded. "I won't." She slipped into her coat, the fabric settling around her like armor. As she walked toward the door, Mark spoke again. "Olivia." She paused. "You're handling this with more grace than he deserves." She held his gaze for a long moment. "Grace isn't for him," she said quietly. "It's for me." And with that, she left the office, stepping into the cool hallway air. Something inside her had changed. Something Daniel would never expect. Something that would transform every step of the battle ahead. Daniel Mercer prided himself on control. Control of his image. Control of his career. Control of the carefully managed architecture of his life. But control had been slipping through his fingers for weeks, and he hadn't realized how quickly the ground was cracking beneath him, until now. The day began like every other. He strode into his office on the 34th floor of Winston & Hale Financial Group. greeted by the familiar smell of roasted coffee, polished walnut, and ambition dressed in tailored suits. Assistants moved with quiet urgency, screens flickered with market data, and Daniel stepped into the rhythm he had lived in for years. Then his phone vibrated. A message from Eva. "We need to talk. Today. Something happened." Daniel frowned. He typed back quickly. "Work's insane." "Tonight?" A moment passed. Her reply was immediate. "No. Now." Daniel exhaled sharply, irritation prickling under his skin. Eva had been different since yesterday. Distant, tense, asking questions he didn't like. Why wasn't Olivia informed yet? Why move money now? Why not finalize a plan? He thought she understood how these things worked. The subtlety, the timing, the choreography of a clean exit. But she had become restless. Too restless. Almost afraid. He grabbed his jacket and took the private elevator down to the lobby, where Eva waited near a cold metal sculpture that looked exactly like the mood she radiated. Sharp, nervous, jagged. The moment he approached, she crossed her arms. "We have a problem," she said. Daniel forced a calm smile, the same one he used to soothe investors. "What now?" "Your lawyer." "My Mark? What about him?" He frowned. "I told you not to involve him yet." Eva's eyes hardened. "He's not your lawyer. He represents Olivia." The words hit him like a slap. "What?" "And he knows everything," she whispered urgently. "About us, about the divorce, about the financial transfers." Daniel's heartbeat stumbled. For the first time in years, real fear flickered inside him. "How?" he demanded. "Did you say something?" "He recognized your name," Eva cut in, "and then he told me he represents Olivia. He said he was going to tell her." Daniel felt a cold, sinking weight in his gut. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. Eva glared. "Do I look unsure?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a short, agitated line. The office building's lobby suddenly felt too exposed. The glass walls too transparent. People passed them, employees, strangers, clients. But he felt every pair of eyes like a spotlight. He lowered his voice. "This complicates things, but it doesn't change the outcome." Eva stared at him, stunned. "Are you kidding?" "Olivia knows, Daniel. She knows you've been planning a divorce behind her back. She knows about the accounts, about me." He stopped pacing, his jaw clenched. She was right. This was bad, very bad, financially, professionally, publicly, and worst of all, legally. "What did Mark say exactly?" Daniel asked. "That Olivia deserves to know everything," Eva muttered. "That he won't let her be blindsided. He made it sound like she's going to fight back." Daniel scoffed, though his voice cracked faintly. "Olivia doesn't fight. She shuts down. She ignores conflict. It's why you thought you could do this without consequences," Eva snapped. Daniel froze, staring at her. A strange moment slid between them, thin, fragile, shifting alliances. For the first time, Eva wasn't the intoxicating escape he'd built her up to be. She was anxious, sharp, demanding, and Daniel suddenly realized something he hadn't wanted to admit. Eva wanted more from him than he was ready to give. "What exactly are you afraid of?" Daniel asked. "Losing me? Or losing what you think I can give you?" Eva stiffened, color rising to her cheeks. "Don't twist this. I'm thinking about both of us." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice to the authoritative tone he'd always used to steady her. "Listen, I can fix this. I'll talk to Olivia tonight." "Talk to her?" Eva repeated, incredulous. "You mean tell her you're leaving, after she's already seen your plans?" He didn't answer, and in his silence, the truth settled heavily between them. "You weren't going to tell her soon, were you?" Eva whispered. You were hoping the paperwork would be too far along for her to do anything. Daniel's jaw tightened. This is how these things are done, to avoid unnecessary chaos. Chaos? Eva echoed. Daniel, this is a marriage, not a merger. He exhaled sharply. I'll fix it. You keep saying that, she said quietly. But the more I look at this, the more I wonder if you can't fix anything at all. The words hit deeper than she realized. Eva, Daniel warned, don't start doubting me now. But she already had. He could see it, like a hairline crack spreading across glass. And for the first time since their affair began, Daniel saw the possibility that she might walk away. Because she hadn't come for love. She'd come for certainty. And today, he had none to give. Eva straightened her blazer. I'm not going down with you if this explodes, she said quietly. Figure this out, Daniel, fast. She turned and walked out of the building, heels clicking sharply across the marble floor, leaving him alone in the echoing lobby. Daniel stood perfectly still, but inside, an earthquake. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to Olivia's name. His thumb hovered over the screen, but he didn't press call. Instead, he whispered under his breath, as if saying it aloud made it real. She knows. Outside the glass walls, the city moved on. Cars, people, light, distance. But for Daniel Mercer, everything had begun to close in. It was strange how a conference room, sterile, quiet, all glass and steel, could feel more dangerous than any battlefield. But as Olivia stepped inside Mark Halden's firm that afternoon, she understood why. This was where lives were dismantled, where truths cut deeper than knives, where people walked in married and walked out rearranged. The room was staged with precision, a long oak table, legal pads neatly aligned, a pitcher of water sweating quietly in the center. Sunlight slanted across the polished surface, a narrow blade dividing the space in two, hers and his. Daniel sat at the far end. He looked up the moment the door opened. For a brief, fragile second, something flickered in his expression. Not remorse, not fear, surprise. He hadn't expected her to come looking like this. Olivia wore a black fitted dress, simple but elegant, paired with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer feared shattering. Her hair was pinned at the back, revealing a face that was calm, not broken, not begging, composed. Mark walked beside her, a steady presence in a charcoal suit, a subtle shield of calm authority. Daniel's eyes flicked between them, a tightness forming at his jawline. Olivia, he said, standing slightly. I didn't think that I'd show up, she finished, easing into her chair. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was worse, controlled. He hated when she was controlled. Mark settled into the seat beside her. We'll keep this professional, he said, his voice even. We're here to discuss preliminary matters. Daniel nodded, fingers drumming the table. Of course. I want this to be civil. Olivia watched him. Civil. The man who hired appraisers behind her back. The man who moved assets out of her reach. The man who lied for 2 years. She said nothing. Daniel cleared his throat, reaching for a stack of papers. I think we should begin with... The door opened again. Eva Rowland stepped inside. Daniel stiffened so sharply it was almost imperceptible. But Olivia saw it. She saw everything now. Eva paused, clearly realizing she was interrupting something larger, heavier, more volatile than she had prepared for. She wore a slate-gray blouse and an expression too carefully arranged to be confident. Dan, she whispered, I didn't mean to... This is a private meeting, Mark said without raising his voice, but the weight of it filled the room. Eva hesitated. Her gaze flicked to Olivia, expectant, maybe even curious. What kind of wife was she? Fragile? Unraveled? Angry? Olivia met her eyes with a stillness so cold and steady that Eva's breath hitched. "Stay," Olivia said quietly. Everyone turned to her. "Stay," she repeated. "You've been part of this for years. You may as well hear how it ends." The silence that followed was razor thin. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "Liv, that's not necessary." "Oh, I think it is," she replied. Eva sat down slowly, choosing a chair on Daniel's side of the table, though she didn't sit close to him. Not today. Not when the ground felt as if it was cracking. Mark cleared his throat. "Let's begin." Daniel passed the papers forward, but his calm facade was thinning. His eyes darted to Olivia's face, searching for hysterics, tears, emotional leverage. He found none. Olivia scanned the document silently. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was cool as winter. "You kept the condo." Daniel hesitated. "It's more practical." "For who?" she asked. No response. She turned the page. "You moved $200,000 to private accounts." Daniel's jaw tightened. "It was preparatory." "For a future without me," she said. Eva flinched. "And here." Olivia slid another document forward. "Projected settlement guidelines without my consent." Daniel straightened, the tension in his voice finally cracking through. "Liv, I was trying to make this easier. I didn't want to fight." Her eyebrows lifted, calm but cutting. "You didn't want resistance." He opened his mouth, but Mark spoke first. "Daniel, you made deliberate efforts to disadvantage your spouse financially. That alone shifts the entire case." Eva swallowed hard. Daniel shot Mark a look, strained and brittle. "This isn't about punishment. It's about honesty," Mark said. Daniel turned to Olivia again. "You could have come to me before going to Mark. We could have talked like adults." Olivia let out a quiet exhale, almost a laugh. "Talk? You made every decision without me. You put an expiration date on our marriage and forgot to put it on the calendar." Eva stared down at the table. Daniel leaned back, trying to summon the charm that won her over years ago. "Liv, I didn't want to hurt you." Olivia's expression softened, not with affection, with truth. "You didn't want the inconvenience of hurting me," she said. "That's not the same thing." Daniel's facade cracked. A flicker of anger, a flicker of guilt, a flicker of something he couldn't control. Eva whispered, "Daniel, maybe we should leave." "No," Olivia said gently, her voice steady. "I want her here." Eva's eyes lifted, wide and wary. "Because one day," Olivia continued, "you'll realize that the way a man leaves his marriage is exactly the way he'll leave you." Eva froze. Daniel inhaled sharply, and Mark, sitting beside Olivia, didn't hide the quiet respect in his eyes. The rest of the meeting unfolded not with shouting or chaos, but with clarity. Olivia asked questions. She challenged inaccuracies. She corrected false assumptions. She dismantled Daniel's plan piece by piece, calmly, surgically, decisively. By the end, Daniel wasn't speaking. Eva wasn't breathing. And Olivia felt something lift inside her. Not triumph, but release. When it was over, she gathered her things, stood, and looked at Daniel one last time. "You thought divorce would free you," she said softly. "But you never imagined I'd free myself too." She walked out. Mark followed a moment later. Daniel remained in his chair, staring at the documents that no longer promised the future he imagined. And Eva, for the first time, wasn't sure she wanted to sit next to him anymore. The evening Daniel returned home, Chicago was wrapped in a thin winter fog, the kind that blurred streetlights into hazy halos and made the entire city feel like it was breathing quietly in the dark. He stepped into the condo, dropped his keys on the counter, and stood there for a long moment staring at the empty living room. Silence pressed against him like weight, not the peaceful kind, the accusing kind. Olivia's absence wasn't new. She had been sleeping in the guest room for weeks, but tonight the silence felt intentional, heavy, cold. A mirror held up to everything he didn't want to see. He loosened his tie, ran a hand through his hair, and walked toward the liquor cabinet. He poured himself a double scotch, the burn in his throat doing nothing to calm the unease twisting through his chest. The conference room replayed in his mind on a torturous loop. Olivia's steadiness, Eva's shrinking confidence, Mark's quiet authority. The way the balance of power shifted with every sentence. He prided himself on being the most composed person in any room. Today, he wasn't. Today, he was the one unraveling. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. He'd wanted freedom. He'd imagined liberation. He'd pictured a clean, effortless transition into a life with Eva. No mess, no chaos, no guilt. But Olivia's calm dismantling of his plans had rattled him in a way he couldn't understand. Because she wasn't angry. She wasn't desperate. She wasn't trying to win him back. She just let go. And that somehow felt worse than rage. His phone buzzed. Eva. He stared at the notification for a long beat, then exhaled and answered. Her voice came through strained, brittle. Daniel, we need to talk. Not tonight, he muttered. It's been a hell of a day. No, she insisted, tone trembling. We can't avoid this. He closed his eyes. What do you want to say? A shaky inhale. Then, are we still doing this? The question hung between them like a guillotine. He opened his eyes, staring into the dim condo. Of course we are. I just need time to... That's the problem, she cut in. You always need time. You always need space. You always need to prepare. And meanwhile, I'm the one who walked into a lawyer's office and realized I've been used. Daniel stiffened. That's not fair, isn't it? Eva whispered. You told me you were in control. You told me we had a plan. But today you looked like you'd never seen consequences before. Daniel bristled. I wasn't expecting that ambush. Olivia had no right. No right? Eva repeated, almost laughing. She's your wife. She had every right. He paused. A long, slow moment of reckoning. Eva continued quietly. I saw the way you looked at her today. Daniel blinked. What are you talking about? You weren't looking at someone you hated, Eva said. You were looking at someone who finally stopped needing you, and you didn't like it. His breath caught. It was a truth he didn't want spoken aloud. She exhaled shakily. I think I made a mistake. Eva? No, she interrupted. Let me finish. I fell for the version of you I thought existed, but the real you, the one who hides, who maneuvers, who expects women to make things easy for him, I don't think I want that. Daniel felt something inside him lurch. Are you ending this? I'm stepping back, she said, because this collapse you're experiencing, it's not mine, it's yours. The call ended. Just like that. Daniel stared at the phone, chest tight, breath uneven. He had lost control of his marriage, of his affair, of the narrative, of everything. And for the first time, he felt the edges of loneliness closing in around him, sharp and merciless. Across the city, Olivia couldn't sleep. She sat on the floor of the guest room, her back against the bed, her laptop open and papers spread around her like a battlefield's aftermath. Only one lamp was on. Soft, warm, steady, much like her now. She had expected heartbreak to crush her, to leave her sobbing on the floor, drowning in memories and pleas and what-ifs. Instead, she felt lighter, not healed, not whole, but free in a way she hadn't felt in years. There were no illusions left, no false hopes, just truth. Painful, sharp, but honest. Her phone buzzed. Mark.
She hesitated before answering, a strange flutter rising in her chest. "Are you awake?" he asked softly. She exhaled a small laugh. "Clearly." "How are you holding up after today?" Olivia leaned her head back against the wall. "I thought facing him would break me," she admitted, "but instead, I felt strong." "You were," Mark said quietly, "stronger than he ever expected." A pause stretched, comfortable, warm, unspoken. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." "You don't owe me thanks," Mark said, "but I'll take it." She smiled. For the first time in days, it wasn't a brittle smile. It was real. "Get some sleep," he said gently. "I'll call you tomorrow." "Good night, Mark." "Good night, Olivia." When the call ended, she sat in the quiet, feeling something unfamiliar. Hope. Tentative. Small, but alive. And somewhere across the city, Eva sat, alone in her apartment, a single glass of wine untouched on the coffee table, her reflection in the window looking back at her, young, ambitious, afraid. She whispered to herself, "What have I done?" But even she didn't know if she meant entering the affair or leaving it. 3 people, broken in 3 different ways, each facing the truth of the fallout Daniel never thought would reach this far. Tomorrow would bring reckoning. Today, everything collapsed. The movers came at 9 in the morning. Olivia stood by the window of the condo one last time, arms folded, watching as strangers boxed up the remnants of a life that had ended long before she ever realized it. The winter light was soft, washed out, the kind that made the city look gentler than it really was. Behind her, cardboard boxes were stacked in uneven rows. Not many, surprisingly few. Funny, she thought. 10 years of marriage, and she could fit her life into 12 boxes. She hadn't told Daniel she was leaving today. He would come home tonight, expecting another tense silence, another emotionally charged standoff he believed he controlled. And instead, he would find absence, a void, a goodbye written not with words, but with space, a new kind of freedom. She signed the final form, thanked the movers, and walked through each room one last time. There were no tears, no nostalgia tugging at her ribs, just quiet acceptance. When she reached the door, she didn't look back. The elevator doors closed around her with a soft metallic sigh. And for the first time since her world shattered, Olivia Mercer breathed without pain. Her new apartment wasn't glamorous. It wasn't sitting high above the city like the old condo. It wasn't filled with designer furniture or curated art. But it was hers. All hers. A third-floor walk-up in Bucktown with warm brick walls, sunlit windows, and hardwood floors that creaked with unapologetic honesty. It smelled faintly of lemon soap and new beginnings. As the movers carried boxes inside, Olivia touched the kitchen counter. Simple, worn, imperfect. She liked it immediately. It didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. Unlike the life she'd lived before. Her phone buzzed. Mark Halden. "I heard the movers are with you. Need anything?" She typed back. "Olivia, just air and caffeine, but I think I'm handling it." A moment passed. Then, "Mark, I'm proud of you." Her chest tightened, not painfully, but warmly, softly. Across the river, Daniel walked into an empty condo. He noticed immediately. The absence wasn't loud. It was worse. It was quiet. Her coat wasn't on its hook. Her mug wasn't on the drying rack. Her slippers weren't beside the bed. Everything left behind was sterile, like a hotel room after checkout. He moved through the condo, each step echoing in a way that made something inside him unravel. "Olivia," he called once, instinctively, but the truth hit him with brutal clarity. She was gone, not just physically, emotionally.
completely, and something in him broke that he didn't know was capable of breaking. "Damn it," he whispered, running a trembling hand over his face. He had thought divorcing her would be clean, controlled, predictable. Instead, losing her felt like stepping off a cliff and realizing too late that the ground had already disappeared. He sat on the edge of the unmade bed, eyes fixed on the floor. For the first time, he said the truth aloud. "I didn't think she'd actually leave." Eva sat at her desk at work, hands frozen above her keyboard. Daniel hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't followed up after their last conversation. It shouldn't have bothered her, but it did. She stared at her reflection in the black screen of her monitor, feeling the sharp ache of choices she could no longer justify. She thought she'd stolen a life. Instead, she'd walked into a disaster. She thought Daniel would fight for her, but he couldn't even fight for himself. A coworker passed behind her. "You okay, Eva?" She forced a smile. "Just tired." But she wasn't tired. She was unraveling, and for the first time since this began, she wondered if she'd ever been anything more than a placeholder in Daniel's dissatisfaction. That evening, Mark knocked on Olivia's new door. She opened it slowly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She wore a soft sweater, jeans, and the kind of expression one wears after fighting a long battle and finally laying down the sword. Mark held up a paper bag. "I bring offerings, coffee, and real food, not moving day snacks." She stepped aside, letting him in. The apartment glowed under warm lamps, boxes half opened, the scent of takeout filling the space. It already felt more alive than the condo ever had. Mark placed the bag on the counter, then turned to her. "You okay?" he asked gently. Olivia leaned on the counter, arms crossed. She didn't pretend. She didn't mask. "I'm breathing," she said. "For now, that's enough." He nodded, eyes softening. "You did something incredibly hard today," he said. "Most people don't leave until they're forced to. You left on your own terms." She exhaled. "That's new for me." He smiled faintly. "It suits you." A comfortable silence settled between them, warm, not heavy. The city hummed softly outside, cars passing, life continuing. Olivia glanced at him. "Mark, why did you help me like this? Really?" His expression shifted, gentle but honest. "Because I know what it's like when someone destroys the foundation you stand on," he said quietly. "And because you deserved someone in your corner." He looked at her, really looked. "And because I care." The air thickened, warm, careful, unspoken. Olivia didn't look away. She didn't step back. She simply let the truth settle between them like a soft, steady light. "I'm not ready for anything new," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "But I'm here, Bab," he added. "Not to replace anything, just here." Olivia felt something loosen inside her chest, slow, cautious hope. She gave a small smile. "One day, maybe I'll be ready." Mark returned the smile. "No rush. Healing doesn't run on a schedule." They ate together, quietly, comfortably, surrounded by half-open boxes and beginnings still in their wrapping paper. Outside the window, Chicago glowed, vast, imperfect, alive. And inside that small apartment, Olivia Mercer felt, for the first time in a very long while, like her life wasn't ending. It was starting.